All right, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Geopolitics on the Tone Vays channel. And let's see how many we have live. Let's make sure we are streaming. Looks like we are good. And I have a hard stop at the top of the hour. I'll probably end a little before that. We're going to jump right into screen share once I get confirmation that audio and video are all set. Let's see what we got. Um, I I don't normally watch Candace Owens' show, so I don't have a comment on her episode about the USS Liberty. Isn't that the ship that got shot up by the Israelis and the United States pretended like a bunch of American military didn't die at the hands of the Israelis who fired at the ship on purpose? That's my knowledge about the subject. I'm not surprised. And someone sent me a video with Scott Horton on her show. I'm sure it was a great episode, but I didn't watch it. Audio and video are good. Excellent. All right. I'm sure it was good. I'm sure it was good. Candace Owens should be the press secretary for Donald Trump. That would be awesome. But he did not select her as the press secretary. And this is what this video is going to be about. This entire video is going to be about Trump's cabinet picks. Some are good, some are bad, and some are outright disastrous. So I mentioned it on my prior video that I was very disappointed with Trump's picks of who's going to be actually running Trump's policies. Overall, I would give Trump, if I had to give him a grade, I'd give him a solid C plus overall on the people that he chose to be around him. There is one slight major high-level positive that I am going to mention. I don't know if I should mention it first. I don't know if I should mention it last. I'll probably mention it all together. So here is why overall he gets a C plus, maybe B minus, in that I actually don't like the majority of his picks. There's a few that are good. The majority are not. Here is the only bright side. We're going to talk about a few of them specifically. And I am going to the New York Times, mostly because they just have, like, a good screenshot of all the people, and they give you a nice little tiny blurb on all of them. Oh, it's just, I'm sure Jake is talking about me being there on January 6th. As you guys know, I am a big Trump fan. I still think he did a lot of very, very bad things as president. And oh, Mark Wood, you live in the DC area. If you want to join the show, and because maybe you know some of these names better than me, I'm gonna send you a link if you want to hop on and talk Trump's presidential, cabinet picks. So here's the one bright spot. The one bright spot in all of his picks is as follows. He pretty much selected almost everyone that are absolute Trump loyalists, and they're not going to backstab him like almost everybody did the last time he was president. So, for example, Marco Rubio, his Secretary of State, who I think is a terrible pick for Secretary of State. Let's start there. Horrible pick for Secretary of State. But Marco Rubio is not very independent. Marco Rubio, if Trump tells him what to do, or if Trump tells him to jump, Marco Rubio is going to jump. So the advantage of picking someone like Marco Rubio is that Marco Rubio has absolutely no choice but to do exactly what Donald Trump tells him to do. Because Marco Rubio will have no career at all. I don't remember what he was doing. Like, I know he's like Cuban American. Like, if Marco Rubio fucks up, and doesn't do what Trump tells him to do, and he tries to have any of his own independent thoughts on any geopolitical matters, Marco Rubio might as well, his next job will be a janitor. Okay. So this is the advantage of picking someone like Marco Rubio, is that it's the opposite of Tony Blinken. This is the job currently occupied by Tony Blinken. And Tony Blinken actually tells Joe Biden what to do, or Tony Blinken doesn't even bother telling Joe Biden what to do. Tony Blinken just does it, right? Tony Blinken probably thinks he's the president of the United States. That's not the case here with Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is literally just there to tell others what Trump thinks. That's it. He'll have zero independent reign on, and this is like the second most important position. It's actually debatable who's more important, the Secretary of State or the Vice President. For example, in the current administration, I actually forgot that a Vice President exists. We haven't heard from her since her drunk statements after she lost the election, right? But the Secretary of State is basically running the country. It's debatable whether the Secretary of State or the Vice President is actually, like has more power. Pompeo for White House dishwasher. No, I wouldn't have him anywhere near the White House. Pompeo's in the White House. He's just gonna be like he's gonna just plant listening devices everywhere for his old CIA buddies. How many of them will end up snakes? Very few. Very, very few, right? This is what I mean. The only good thing about Trump's picks is that either they are completely loyal to Trump or they'll never have a job again, like ever, okay? They will be completely destroyed. So let's just go through some of them. I'm just going to go across the board and give you my general opinions. Some are going to take a little more time than others. So Secretary of State, terrible choice. The reason he's a terrible choice is because he is a rhino neocon. He would love to start a war with China. He would love to start a war with what do you call it? With Iran as well. And I'm not actually sure what he thinks about Cuba. I need to look into that. Probably nothing good. And he's not someone I like. I'm not a big fan of Marco Rubio. He is a Republican, so that automatically makes him, better than any Democrat. Let's get my bias out of the way here, okay? I'm gonna say it up front. If you are a Democrat, you are a communist. It is at this point in American history, there is no other way to go about it. Some are a little more crazy, some are a little more moderate, but at the end of the day, the current liberal movement, which is not the movement of the old, Kennedy family, which is why RFK left the Democratic Party. The current state of the Democratic Party is they are the party of communism. That's it. They are the party of communism. Okay. There is not a single good Democrat in office. Maybe there's one or two. I have no idea who they are. I cannot name them. Okay. When it comes to the Republicans, I would say the majority of them are pure evil as well. Okay. But at least there are a few. There is maybe a dozen, maybe 20 good Republicans. And they are all pretty much the only good people left in the government are Republicans. That doesn't mean that every Republican is good. It just means that a small fraction of Republicans in the government are good people. I don't see that at all from Democrats. Well, like they just don't exist, right? The only good ones that used to exist have switched parties to either be independent or switch to the Republican Party, just like RFK has, and Tulsi Gabbard, and many others. Okay, this is basically the reality of American politics. Now, when I say government, I mean presidential branch, judicial branch, Congress branch, Senate and House, and the governors. Okay, you put them all in one room. you get about, I don't know, 600 people, and out of all of them, maybe 25 are actually good human beings, and the rest are narcissistic sociopaths, okay? Maybe 25 out of all of them are going to be actually, good people. And out of those 25, I want to say all 25 are Republican, maybe some independent, and maybe there's a Democrat that can sneak into that mix, but I can't name a single one, so I can't give you any names. Okay, let's go on. The Attorney General. Now, the original pick for the Attorney General was Matt Gaetz. Okay, I like Matt Gaetz. I know he's got a lot of, like the Democrats hate Matt Gaetz. Okay, I like Matt Gaetz. Trump totally fucked up. He picked a candidate for Attorney General who had to resign from the House of Representatives to take the job, knowing full well that there's enough dirt on him to prevent him from being the Attorney General. So now we lost Matt Gaetz from the House of Representatives, where I really, really liked him. Okay, I did like him. He was one of the 25 that I actually liked, regardless of his, hooking up with young women, I'm assuming of age, but too young for liking, I guess. I have no idea, right? I liked his policies, and I liked his questioning of. There's so many good sound bites of Matt Gaetz on the Senate floor, on the House floor. So you want to check that out. So that was a Trump fuck up, right? So he took somebody out of a really good position. I don't know much about Pam Bondi, but she was the Attorney General for Florida. I like which direction Florida's been headed the last decade. So I don't have much of a comment, but the Attorney General of the US is, not international politics related. Okay. Now, the choice for the defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, I completely disagree with this pick. I think this is a terrible choice. Okay. He picked a commentator from Fox News who has some military experience, but mostly, chats, right? This is like picking a commentator on sports news to be your head coach of your team. It rarely works out. Maybe it will. I completely disagree with this choice. The main reason why I disagree with this choice is because while he occasionally talks about, maybe we shouldn't go to war with everyone, he seems like the guy that wants to go to war with everyone, especially China. He is a bit of a neocon when it comes to China and Iran. He may not be interested in Ukraine, but based on the interviews that I heard of him, and Judge Napolitano covered it, and Brian Berletic covered it, I've seen enough interviews with this guy that he is more than happy to start a war with China. So off the bat, Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense gets a grade F. Right off the bat, he gets an F. That's an F. Marco Rubio, probably a D minus, maybe a D plus. Let's give him a D. Not the best choice, but again, a loyalist to Trump. This guy, again, unless look, it's a nicely high-paid career to talk war strategy on TV. But as far as Pete Hegseth's career goes, he's a Trump guy. He has no political career outside of Trump. Okay, so again, it's another guy who is I don't want to say I don't want to say these guys are yes man, but if Trump tells them to do something, they will say yes. Now, they seem to be smart enough to actually go to Trump and say, hey, I think this is a mistake. I think you should do this. They're a different type of yes man. There are yes men that have no opinion and they're just straight up yes man. And then there are people who will come to you with actual critical thinking skills and say, hey, Mr. Trump, I really disagree with you on this. And then Trump says, I don't give a fuck about your opinion, go do this. He's still going to go and do that. Okay. So this is how I see the current administration. Okay. Kristi Noem, this is another grade D right here on Kristi Noem. Again, Pam Bundy, her grade is incomplete because I'm just not familiar with her work. I'm more familiar with Matt Gaetz's work. So if Matt Gaetz was the attorney general, even though he's not really a lawyer, I would have given him like a B+ or an A-, pending the fact that I don't know how qualified he is for the job. She is super qualified for the job, but I have no idea what her political views are. Being from Florida, I'm going to give this one maybe a B+ as well. But I really, in reality, for me, that's an incomplete because I'm just not as familiar with her work. Well, yeah, Nico, I agree. You need, that's the thing, right? I do need I prefer independent thinkers, but also it's good that he's only picking people that are not going to double cross Trump. And none of these guys are going to double cross Trump. Now, Kristi Noem, I hate this selection. Kristi Noem was a great governor of South Dakota. I hope it wasn't North Dakota. South Dakota, I think. I like her. She's definitely a pro-gun advocate. She always walks around with her gun. I like her statements. She is, unfortunately, a mini neocon in the making. She is. She passed some policies in her state. Bundy supported red flag laws. Yeah, that's not good. That definitely lowers a grade. Like I said, I'm not as familiar with her work. I haven't had a chance to dig into everyone, and I don't think I will. So I'm just giving you what I know up to this point. I'm just going to give you the big highlights. Kristi Noem, she literally passed free speech laws. Okay, that is atrocious. Kristi Noem, what was it? It was over. Noem, sorry. Kristi Noem. I don't care about her net worth. I don't care about her dog. Jesus Christ. What was it? Anti-Semitism law. Anti-Semitism law. Okay. Government signs historic bill to combat anti-Semitism. This is anti-free speech. Like, she actually deserves to be disqualified from all levels of government by passing this law. Okay. I think everyone by now knows I'm Jewish. If I want to say shit about the Jewish religion, I should not be arrested for that. Okay. It shouldn't even matter if I am Jewish or not. This is a free speech issue. And she clearly doesn't believe in free speech, which last I recalled was the First Amendment of the US Constitution. So to me, Kristi Noem has disqualified herself from public office by passing laws against free speech. Okay, done. So this is a terrible choice, borderline F, but I'll give her a little bit of a little benefit of the doubt, and I'll give her a D-. Okay. So that's a horrible choice. Horrible, horrible, horrible choice. Okay. Also, by the way, we can look and see what the Democrats, the communist newspaper, New York Times, thinks about these pics. Okay. Should we let the AI read it? Hold on. Let me hold on. Share computer audio. Stereo. Okay, let's try this.
A Florida senator who was first elected in 2010 as part of a new generation of conservative Tea Party leaders, Mr. Rubio was ridiculed by Mr. Trump as Little Marco when they competed for the Republican presidential nomination in 2016. Read more. Pam Bondi, Attorney General, announced. Ms. Bondi served on Mr. Trump's legal team during his first impeachment and currently leads the legal arm of the America First Policy Institute. After stepping down as Florida's Attorney General in 2019, she went to work as a lobbyist for Ballard Partners, run by Brian Ballard, a close associate and fundraiser for Mr. Trump. Read more. Pete Hegseth, Defense Secretary, announced. Mr. Hegseth is a Fox News host and a veteran of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Read more. Kristi Noem, Homeland Security Secretary, announced. Ms. Noem, the governor of South Dakota, is a Trump loyalist who was once seen as a potential candidate for vice president. Read more. Lori Chavez DeRemer, Labor Secretary, announced. Ms. Chavez DeRemer, an Oregon congresswoman, recently lost her re-election bid. She has support from influential unions like the Teamsters and has backed the expansion of labor rights.
Okay, so I'm already not a big fan. Okay, guys, I'm not a fan of unions. Okay, unions is basically another communist, liberal style institutions. I'm not a fan of. I mean, to me, I'm not a fan of. I'm just not a fan of unions. So I know Trump kind of needs the unions, but anyone that's super pro-union for labor secretary, man, that bothers me a lot. Okay, unions tend to hold back a lot of progress, but we will see. We will see how this one goes. Okay. 1 second. One second, guys. One second, guys. I gotta reply. Okay, sorry. Unrelated to the stream, actually. So I'm not familiar with Lori. First time I heard of her name. So again, grade incomplete. I have no idea. John Ratcliffe. That name actually sounds familiar to me, but I'm not crazy familiar with his work.
Mr. Ratcliffe is a former Texas congressman who served as Director of National Intelligence during Mr. Trump's first term. Read more. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, announced. A former Democratic House member.
All right, we'll get to Gabbard. So this one I actually do know a little bit about. Sorry, I did look him up. So one of the things, right? This is Trump's cabinet, the CIA director. I really should have looked into him a little bit more before doing this video. There might be a part 2 to this. A lot of people are going to watch this and they're going to call me an idiot that I don't know what I'm doing, and they're going to send me some good links and I will study and I will be more prepared. Let me get to, where the hell is he? Hold on. Shit. Let me get the spelling of his name, Ratcliffe. Again, Wikipedia is a total propaganda machine, but it's useful in seeing people's history. So here's my problem with him, the biggest problem. He was there during Trump's first presidency. Okay, here. No, wait, not there.
President Donald Trump announced.
Sorry. I'm also getting them confused. Sure.
On January 20th, 2020, before the Senate impeachment trial, the Trump administration named Ratcliffe as one of the congressional members of his impeachment team. 4. Upon the announcement, Ratcliffe said, "I took an oath to defend the Constitution. This impeachment is an assault on due process. It's an assault on the separation of powers. It's unconstitutional. I'm grateful for the opportunity to make that clear to every American during the Senate trial." Ratcliffe worked with the White House for several weeks before the Senate trial to prepare oral arguments and legal briefs. 6. He was tapped for the position based on his legal background and effectiveness during impeachment proceedings in the House Intelligence and Judiciary Committees.
So this could be a decent choice. I do need to learn a little bit more about him. This wasn't the guy that was working directly for Pence, right? I think I'm getting him confused with someone else. So I'm going to skip this one for now, and I'm going to get back to him. Now comes for potentially one of the few A grades we have, and that's Tulsi Gabbard. Okay, so Tulsi Gabbard, I am a
Tracking Trump's cabinet and staff nominations by June Kim, Karen Yurish, and Jasmine C. Lee. Updated December 13th, 2024. Share full article. A former Democratic House member who ran for president in 2020 and then left the party, Ms. Gabbard was briefly considered by Mr. Trump as a possible running mate. She is a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve and served in Iraq. Read more. Mehmet Oz, Medicare and Medicaid administrator, announced. Dr. Oz, a celebrity physician, lost to John Fetterman.
We'll get to Oz. So Tulsi Gabbard is probably the highest grade of anyone that he's selected. Tulsi Gabbard, to me, at the moment, we'll see what happens, right? She gets an A. And Tulsi Gabbard is probably the best choice. Now, Tulsi Gabbard has one of the highest positions. She's the director of national intelligence. So I'm not sure if the CIA reports to her, but every other agency reports to her. Every other intelligence agency reports to her. So Tulsi is probably the best pick for a person out of everyone on this list. So this is like the only reason why Trump's overall grade is in the C's and not the D's. Well, like she alone pulls everybody up. Okay. Now, Dr. Oz, I can't believe Dr. Oz lost the senator race to John Fetterman in 2022. This was insane. Okay. I actually like Dr. Oz. I don't necessarily agree with all of his medical views, but you can read it right here. Again, there's more to read, but you have to have a subscription to the New York Times, which I hope no one that listens to me has.
Tracking Trump's cabinet and staff nominations by Dr. Oz, a celebrity physician, lost to John Fetterman in 2022 in a race to represent Pennsylvania in the Senate. He had a history of dispensing dubious medical advice on his daytime show, which ceased production when he announced his bid for the Senate. In the early days of the pandemic, he clashed with medical experts by promoting the malaria drugs hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine to ward off the coronavirus. Read more. Lee Zeldin, EPA administrator, announced.
Okay, so I like Oz, and again, just by him prescribing hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, well, he doesn't say ivermectin, but I'm sure he would have liked ivermectin. Makes it a good choice for medical administrator. I'm not actually sure what the hell these people do in the government, but that's a good pick. Probably A-, definitely in the A range. Okay, EPA administrator. I'm not familiar with this guy's work. I don't really care all that much for the EPA, but let's see what the New York Times has to say.
A former congressman from Long Island who ran unsuccessfully for governor in 2022. Mr. Zeldin is an avid supporter of Mr. Trump, who voted against certifying the results of the 2020 election. During Mr. Zeldin's tenure in the House of Representatives, he voted against clean water legislation at least a dozen times, and clean air legislation at least half a dozen times, according to a scorecard from the League of Conservation Voters. Read more. Elise Stefanik, UN ambassador, announced. Ms. Stefanik, who
Okay, so right there, the New York Times is trying to say that this guy doesn't want clean water and this guy doesn't want clean air. What people have to understand is when the government names a bill, the Clean Water Act, it's probably should be named properly as the Dirty Water Act. The government loves to name bills the opposite of what they actually do. You know, like the Patriot Act was supposed to keep America secure, when in reality, it was just a spying machine, right? So they love to name shit that's the opposite. Hey, this is, I don't know, a free money bill, when in reality, it's just a money laundering, how to arrest you for money laundering, right? Instead of free money. Instead of like money being free to use as you like, right? So they will name that, right? There will be like the, or they'll name it like the Bitcoin Freedom Bill, which would basically spy on your Bitcoin transaction, right? So that's what the government does. So the fact that this guy voted against the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act doesn't mean that he's against clean air and clean water. It could actually mean that he read the bills and he said, this is insane. It says the Clean Water Act, but it actually puts fluoride and other chemicals in the water. The fact that he voted against the thing that says the Clean Water Act, and knowing full well that he's going to get backlash for voting against something called Clean Water Act, earns respect from me because he probably read the bills. Okay, so not much. I don't really know. I'm not really familiar with his history, like I am with, say, big fan of Tulsi Gabbard, and a big anti-fan of Christine Noem. So in this case, we go on. Is a totally useless position, and she is a complete pro-Zionist. By the way, this entire cabinet is very pro-Zionist, as Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone likes to call this the MAGA movement, Make Israel Great Again. So
represents an upstate New York district in the House and is a member of the Republican leadership in the chamber, has been a vocal supporter of Mr. Trump. She emerged as a key ally during Mr. Trump's first impeachment proceeding. She has minimal experience in foreign policy and national security. Read more. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Health and Human Services Secretary, announced. Mr. Kennedy, an environmental lawyer and an heir to of one of America's most storied Democratic families, has no medical or public health degree. He is a vocal vaccine skeptic and critic of the CDC, and has promoted theories that suggest HIV is not the true cause of AIDS.
So, UN ambassador, useless position. She's just going to be a yes woman, doing whatever Trump says, and vote for anything pro-Israel in the UN assembly. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I like this pick. He will never, ever get confirmed by Congress to be in this position. So it's a waste of a pick. It will be a miracle if he actually gets this job. But if he does, I'm all for it. Bill Gates doesn't have a medical degree either. But unlike Bill Gates, at least Kennedy is an environmental lawyer. So he's actually done real research himself in all these fields, especially the vaccine field and other medical fields, and anything that has to do with environment affecting your health, unlike Bill Gates, which has zero qualifications whatsoever. So I think this is a great choice. The choice is an A+ for Robert F. Kennedy in this position, but the Senate will never, ever confirm him because the pharmaceutical lobby has bribed most of them. All right, let's go on. Interior Secretary, honestly, I don't know him. Affairs, Doug Collins, again, I don't know him. Not the most important position in my book. No offense to the veterans. Now, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. This I'm a little skeptical on, okay? I did Google this guy.
Mr. Bessent, a billionaire hedge fund manager, has emerged as a central economic advisor to Mr. Trump over the past year. Read more. Brooke Rollins, Agriculture Secretary. Mr. Bessent, a billionaire hedge fund manager, has emerged as a central economic advisor.
So there was one interesting thing in his background. Very interesting. Let's go. Where's the Treasury? Secretary of Defense, Interior, Attorney General, Agriculture, Commerce, Health and Human Services, Transportation, Education. We'll get to that in a second. Homeland Security. Okay. Cabinet. Jesus Christ. Chief of Staff. We'll get to that too. All right. What the hell? Where's the rest of them? There he is. So here, right? So something caught my eye here. And what caught my eye was this. He was a partner at Soros Fund Management and founder of Key Square Group. Anyone that has any association with Soros, even before they knew how to speak, is probably a bad thing, okay? Soros is on my personal Mount Rushmore of the 4 most evil people currently alive, okay? Soros is one of these people, right? He's on my Mount Rushmore, okay? It's hard to pick just 4 of the most evil people alive today. Soros is 1, Klaus Schwab is 2, Bill Gates is probably 3, and now we can start do a roulette wheel for number 4. Fauci's probably up there, and there's many others to choose from, okay? But Soros is on my Mount Rushmore of most evil people ever. So anyone associated with Soros, I want nothing. I don't want this person anywhere near public office, okay? So that's a horrible association. Absolutely horrible. I'm not sure what his economic views are. He does come from the hedge fund industry, which I do respect more than someone like Janet Yellen, who's never actually had a private job. So we'll see what he does. But the moment I saw Soros, that's a problem. That's a huge, huge problem. Now, again, maybe I shouldn't talk too much. I did work at Bear Stearns for a while, and then JP Morgan. But in general, uh, uh, Winston is saying, isn't Soros anti-Zionist? Soros is pro tyrannical control. It's not that he's Soros is also pro anything that creates chaos. So, for example, when Soros was younger, Soros would rat out the Jews to the Nazis, helping his uncle in this job when he was 14. Soros never actually said he was sorry about doing that. As far as I know, Soros is still proud of being, a Jewish person that would rat out Jews in Hungary to the Nazi regime. And Soros is the reason why countries are being destabilized all around the world. So Soros is probably the reason why, one of the reasons why, like, Syria is being helped to be destabilized, right? So Soros is, he's the guy that would get the bricks shipped to the street where protests are going to happen, so that, the protesters have bricks to throw at law enforcement when he feels that this particular protest is in his best interest. So he's neither anti-Zionist nor pro-Zionist. If it's good for Soros, he will fund the movement, right? So Soros funded the movement in Ukraine to overthrow the democratically elected government, and he may or may not be supporting the current. I mean, Soros is too busy overthrowing democratically elected presidents all around the world. Israel is not of interest to him because Israel is not really a democracy. People think it's a democracy, but it's not. So Israel is not a democracy. So Soros' job has been done before he started, because Soros' only goal is to overthrow democracies. And since Israel is not a democracy, he has no interest in Israel. Okay. Okay. Well, let's move on. Brooke Rollins, Agriculture Secretary. I don't have time to look into that. Not someone I plan to discuss today. Howard Lutnick, Commerce. Again, not interesting. Well, let's go back to the top, actually, because now we have a lot of people that I don't really need to discuss at all. We talked about these guys. Interior Treasury, FDA. I'm not familiar with his work. I should be familiar with his work. Let's see how much the New York Times hates him.
Dr. Makari, a Johns Hopkins University surgeon and researcher, rose to prominence more than a decade ago as a critic of the medical establishment. He was largely opposed to vaccine mandates during the COVID pandemic.
Okay, I like him already. Sounds like a great choice. I'm giving him an A- without even looking into his work, based on what the New York Times just said about him. That looks like an A- choice. Let's move on. Energy, not familiar with his work. Linda McMahon. So this is an interesting choice. I honestly couldn't care less who the Secretary of Education is. I don't think she's into gender-affirming surgeries. So that alone makes her a good choice. As long as she's not woke in making, in hiring every teacher to be a gay transgender for your, preschoolers, it's a good choice. Next, NATO. I need to look into this guy. This is, let's see.
Mr. Whitaker served as acting attorney general in the first Trump administration for about 3 months after Jeff Sessions stepped down and before William P. Barr was confirmed to succeed him. He does not have foreign policy experience. Read more. Scott Turner. Mr. Whitaker served as acting attorney general.
Most of Trump's picks don't have any actual experience. By the way, go back to Pete Hegseth. The biggest problem with choosing Pete Hegseth is not even that he wants to start and Iran, is that he has no management experience whatsoever. So him running the Department of Defense is going to be a fucking nightmare. So again, this is a grade of F on the Secretary of Defense, which at the moment is an important position. I look more into the NATO guy, but again, I'm sure he's just a yes man to whatever Trump wants to do with NATO. Housing, don't care. CDC, important, but I don't have time. I'm down to 10 minutes, guys.
Dr. Weldon is a former Florida congressman and a physician. While in Congress, he pushed the notion that thimerosal, a preservative compound in some vaccines, had caused an explosion of autism. This hypothesis has long been shown to be false, experts say.
Okay, I like him already. I do believe I am anti-vaccine across the board now. I was never anti-vaccine. I had 4 vaccines injected into me in January of 2020 before the lockdowns. And then during the lockdowns, I educated myself that, look, I don't want to get this video banned. You guys can inject yourself with 8 billion vaccines. I will never inject myself with any vaccine. And when I eventually have kids, they will never get a single vaccine. Okay. That's my current view on vaccines. When they're of age, they can choose whether they want to be vaccinated or not. But as babies, they're not being injected by anything. And if they have to be homeschooled and they can't travel very far, then that's what it is. And then when they're actually of age, or at least, 8 years old or something, where their body can kind of manage the shit better, I'll consider a vaccination or 2. But this is what the pandemic did. This is what the lockdowns did. They turned people like myself, who were actually pro-vaccine, to completely 180 to be anti every vaccine, every single one, not just the mRNA, every single one. And RFK is right. Every single vaccine is pure evil. And almost every single disease actually went away before the vaccines, started spreading. I'm probably going to get this video banned, by the way. All right, let's move on. Surgeon General, another medical position.
Dr. Nishewat is a Fox News medical contributor and a sister-in-law of Representative Michael Waltz of Florida, whom Trump has chosen to be his national security advisor.
All right, not sure why that's the most important thing, that she's a sister-in-law. Who cares? What about her medical expertise, right? There's way too many medical positions here that government gets to appoint. That's not good, actually, in general. I don't know that much about her. A lot of freaking positions here. Let's move on. I do have some comments on many others. I don't care about that. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, absolutely terrible choice. Terrible choice to be the ambassador to Israel. I've heard his comments on Israel, a complete pro-Zionist, and this is going to be a problem. I think that's a horrendous choice. Okay. Ambassador to Canada, no one cares. It's like the 51st state. Deputy Attorney General, doesn't matter. Solicitor General, I don't care. Trade representative, don't care. Health Deputy, another health position. Okay, Kash Patel. I love this. I love this comment from the New York Times.
Mr. Patel is a right-wing operative who has vowed to use the position to exact revenge on Mr. Trump's adversaries. Read more. Charles Kushner, ambassador to France, announced.
Awesome. If Patel actually arrests every fucking communist in the U.S. government, great. More power to him. Okay. So Kash Patel is an interesting choice. If you read his Wikipedia, it's insane. He was basically accused, like Trump was asking him for advice on Ukraine, and they both basically got impeached for that. And apparently, Kash Patel is now like, if someone asks you for your opinion on something and you give them that opinion, apparently that's against the law. So the government tried to go after Kash Patel for answering Trump's questions when Trump privately asked them, hey, what's going on with the Ukraine situation? And apparently, this is not Patel's expertise, according to the Democratic government, and therefore, it's an impeachable offense that Trump asked a person for his opinion on the Ukraine situation. This is totally fucking insane. I think Kash Patel will be will do a decent job, but the best job would be to removing the FBI, just like you should remove the CIA. Okay, this department should not exist. It is an evil, evil, evil department. Okay, I used to, man, when I was younger, right, when I was in college, I actually wanted to apply and be an FBI agent. It was one of the things I kind of wanted to do at the time. So I had huge respect for the FBI. I thought they were smart. You know, an average police officer cannot become an FBI agent because it just requires you to have a significantly, you know, high IQ and lots of schooling. And meanwhile, you know, most cops, I mean, you should see the cops in Chicago. They straight up have gang tattoos. Like most cops are like, you know, jocks that can't beat people up anymore, so they become cops. I also lost a lot of respect for cops in the last decade or so. So, but I have respect for the FBI. I have all respect for the FBI. The FBI is the democratic private Gestapo, like the KGB back in Russia, and like like what the Nazis had. Okay, that's what the FBI is. If Kash Patel wants to be worth a damn, he would dismantle the FBI. No, it wasn't X-Files. It wasn't X-Files. Okay, ambassador to France, I couldn't care less. NASA couldn't care less. Envoy on hostage situations, again, not something I care to comment on. Paul Atkins, Security and Exchange Commission. This is important. This requires a video of its own. I'm down to just 5 minutes, so we're gonna have to save this for another day. Decent choice. I give him a B+ so far. Deputy doesn't matter. The IRS guy. So this guy actually doesn't like taxes. He's tried to eliminate some taxes. Hopefully he dismantles the Internal Revenue Service. I give this guy a B+ as a choice to run the IRS. Let's see how that goes. SBA, don't care. Ambassador to China. This is super important, but I'm not familiar with his work, so I can't comment. Okay, let's go. Ambassador in Mexico doesn't matter. Turkey. I mean, these are important positions, actually, Mexico and Turkey, but I don't know who these people are. Not yet, anyway. I'm sure I'll find out about their ex-wife of Governor Gavin Newsom. Shit, that's not a good sign.
Ms. Guilfoyle, a former Fox News host, has been engaged to Donald Trump Jr. for several years. She is the ex-wife of Gov. Gavin Newsom of California, a Democrat. Read more. Ms. Guilfoyle, a former Fox News...
Wow, that's a weird connection. What is she going to be doing? Ambassador to Greece. Okay, well, that one actually doesn't matter at all. Ambassador of Britain also doesn't matter. JD, okay, so here we go. So these were all of the people that require Senate confirmation. I commented on the Secretary of Education. I really, like I said, any Secretary of Education that is not in favor of hiring, what's a politically correct way of saying it? I am all for any Secretary of Education whose primary goal is not turning your kids gay or getting them converted to another gender, right? As long as the Secretary of Education does not have a priority on turning your kids gay and turning your kids into a different gender, I'm perfectly happy with that choice. Okay. And we are talking about kids, not adults. If you are above the age of legal sexual consent and you want to be gay, that is your preference. The more to you. Okay. We are specifically talking about fifth graders and younger. Okay. I am now happy with any Secretary of Education whose number one priority is not to convert your kids to another gender. As long as that is not her number one priority, as long as that's her maybe number 3 priority, I'm okay with it. Because that's not what we've seen in the last 5 years. Okay, now we get to the positions that do not require any approvals. Now, Chief of Staff, I don't know about this one. But again, Trump is just picking loyalist people. Deputy, I don't care about the deputies. The border czar, this guy is going to be fire. This guy is going to be crazy.
Mr. Holman, who served as a senior immigration official in Mr. Trump's first administration, will manage Mr. Trump's campaign promise of widespread deportations of undocumented immigrants and the tightening of measures that allow some of them to stay in the country legally. He has decades of experience in immigration enforcement.
Probably a good choice. I'm going to give him a B+, but let's see what he can do. Let's go back. Now, Michael Waltz, terrible, terrible choice. National Secretary Advisor. Terrible National Security Advisor. Sorry, not Secretary. National Security Advisor. Terrible choice. Another neocon who would love to start a war with China and maybe Iran. He may not be interested in Ukraine, but his mind can easily be changed to be neocon against Ukraine as well. Terrible choice. Don't care. White House counsel, don't care. Don't care. Press secretary. I'm not familiar with her work. Should have been Candace Owens, but that's okay. Staff secretary, don't care. Don't care. Okay. Government efficiency. This is great. This is awesome. I think this is going to be totally useless. I will tell him 2 things, right? For government efficiency, that mean they're not going to be able to cut the budget. That's not going anywhere. If I was these guys, if I was their advisor, I would tell them on day one, you need to get rid of the following 2 ridiculous inefficiencies of the US government. 1, get rid of daylight savings time. It is draining the government of billions of dollars. Not the government. It is draining the private sector of billions of dollars. It is the greatest inefficiency in the world is daylight savings time. And if America eliminates daylight savings time, the rest of the world is going to eliminate daylight savings time as well. That is probably the number 1 gross inefficiency. And the other ridiculous inefficiency in America anyway, though it's not as big these days, get rid of the damn pennies. In fact, the inflation is so high, get rid of the damn nickels too, okay? Get rid of the pennies, get rid of the nickels, and round everything to the nearest 10 cents. And in a few years, when inflation goes up even more, round everything to the nearest quarter. That's another gross, ridiculous inefficiency. So if they start with those 2, I'll give them some credit and then fire a bunch of people. No, the get rid of the one where you change the clock in the summer. That's the one that they actually did. Daylight savings is stupid. It's one of the most stupidest government inefficiencies ever. FCC, okay, skip. Middle East envoy. This is important, but skipping. Okay, here we go. Another terrible choice. Probably like F minus.
Mr. Gorka will be returning to the White House as a deputy assistant to the president and senior director for counterterrorism. He was forced out of the first Trump administration months after Mr. Trump took office in 2017. Read more. Stephen Witkoff, special envoy to the...
This guy wants to start a war, okay? Again, terrible choice, gets an F. He's only an advisor. Hopefully he'll get fired on his first day at a job. You should listen to some of his interviews recently. He literally wants to start a war with Russia, okay? I don't understand how this guy is part of Trump's cabinet. This is completely insane. Anyone else I want to comment on? Not really. Oh, David Sachs. Good choice. Good choice. David Sachs is a good choice. But again, these are not real positions of power, right? They're like advisory positions. But good choice. Carrie Lake, good choice as well. I can't believe she hasn't been elected. I can't believe she lost both of her election bids, one for Senate, one for governor. Those things were totally rigged. Hey guys, there are awesome links in this video description, and mostly pointing to Brian Berletic's videos. They are great. If you go to this video and you open the description of this video, I strongly advise checking this out. Checking these videos by Brian Berletic, and maybe this video from the Duran, but it's a little outdated. Basically, these videos from Brian Berletic explain how it doesn't matter who's president, Trump or Biden, nothing is going to change. The war in Ukraine, the war against Iran, the war against China, nothing is going to change. It doesn't matter if Trump's president, if Elon's president, if Biden's president, or if your 5-year-old child is president. He makes a really good argument as to why. So I strongly recommend watching these videos. It's kind of cool. We get to discuss this topic, but Brian makes a really good point in explaining why nothing is going to change. And the only reason why there wasn't a war under Trump's watch is because it's pure dumb luck. It's just the US wasn't ready for a new war during Trump's presidency. And if Trump had a second term, there would have been a war with Russia regardless, and the same wars would have broke out. And he explains why he thinks that way. It's not a random opinion. He substantiates that opinion with facts. So I recommend checking out those videos. They are in the video description. All right, guys, on this note, I got to get going. Overall, I would give Trump a C- on all of these choices in total, with a few awesome picks here being Tulsi Gabbard and RFK, but are they going to get confirmed? And it's going to be very hard to get them confirmed. And then horrendous choices with an F for, the defense secretary, the defense advisors. They're all neocons. This is a combination of we want to start more wars, and how can Israel become greatest Israel? This is basically the cabinet that Trump has selected. Now, as I said earlier in the show, the only good news about this is that most of these people will be absolutely loyal to Trump, other than people like RFK, who doesn't need to be loyal to Trump because he's in a position where he can make all of his own decisions, and he's not going to interfere with what Trump needs to do or wants to do. So some people do not interfere with Trump's thoughts, but anyone that could be in a position of, backstabbing Trump, he made sure that this person is more loyal to Trump than person being qualified, for example, to run the Defense Department. Now, if I was Trump, I would have chosen Douglas McGregor to be the Secretary of Defense, and I would have chosen someone like I would have filled my cabinet with guests of Judge Napolitano. almost every single person that is a guest on Judge Napolitano's channel, including Judge Napolitano himself, who should probably be a Supreme Court justice. Every single person that comes on his channel, almost every single person, right? There's a couple of people he brings on for a counter opinion, but all of his regulars, from Jeffrey Sachs to John Mearsheimer, John Mearsheimer would be my choice for one of the ambassadors, probably the ambassador to, I don't know, Russia or maybe Israel, because he's very anti-Zionism, the Zionist movement. And someone like Scott Ritter would be a military advisor. Someone like McGregor would be running the Defense Department because he has experience. So these are the people that I would have chosen to be part of the cabinet. And then some good things would have happened. But Larry Wilkinson, I think he's a little crazy when it comes to climate change. So I would probably keep him away from any government position because he thinks we are all going to die tomorrow from global warming. So kind of makes me question some of his things. But yeah, but most of these people would be advisors and some in serious positions. So if you don't watch Judge Napolitano, strongly recommended. He just crossed 500,000 views, 500,000 subscribers. Anyway, all right, guys. On this note, I'm going to call it a day. Maybe we'll do a part 2 to this when I learn a little bit more about some of these people, especially the ones I've never heard of before last week. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all on the next one.